It's good. It's good. I like it.
So, I mean,
Degrowth is mentioned a lot, so that's good.
mm, but the paper that comes out of it is much better. Like, I feel like that older version of my writing is more childish. Yeah.
Uh,
So, and
Send it
long
to me.
sentences.
I
Yeah.
feel like everyone feels that way though. Like I'll look back on pieces I've written years ago and I'll be like, how could I have written this? This is such trash.
Yeah. Yeah, that's how, like, and I'm very judgmental about my previous writing. So it's like,
Alain has a very good book too, by the way. I'm gonna plug it in. So
we should read each other's books. And I think we can have an episode of, like, where we discuss each other's, comment on each other's works as well. I think that would be
Yes.
yeah, of course, of course.
interesting.
Okay, so let's do. I'm thinking a bit of introduction. So we talk for just 1 minute about ourselves, just briefly, and then we just jump into what degrowth means to each of us, and that's it. 30 minutes, and then we'll do another half hour. So
Very good.
who feels the freshest? Who wants to go first? Uh,
I
uh,
mean,
yeah, go ahead.
could you guys talk about the magazine as well? Just, very briefly.
Yeah, we can do that. Uh,
Yeah.
okay, so let's do that first, just
Mm.
very briefly. Our magazine, the Sufficiency and Wellbeing magazine, I'm talking with an imaginary audience in mind who's watching us. So it was launched a year ago with the idea of talking plainly about degrowth in a friendly manner, and but also touch on difficult subjects such as colonialism, capitalism, inequality, um, gender issues, and all of that, in such a way that doesn't feel impenetrable by a general audience. So that was the first thought, and the second thought was to pioneer a sort of collaborative writing style in which we develop trust as authors between us. So we review each other openly, as opposed to the academic style that it's blinded and peer reviewed and all of that, which helps with trust building and building community, which is lacking a lot, let's say, on the left and on the progressive side of things. And that's it. That was the mini vision, and we're hoping to grow on that, build on that. I'm very happy with our success. Collected a lot of authors and writers, and I hope we keep doing this. And this is our video product, our podcast, so people can see our faces and hear our voices. So that's the magazine, folks. Do you want to say anything about it? Are you enjoying it so far? Rooms for improvement, thoughts? Alain, what do you think?
Mm, no, just to further add to what you said, no, I think it's what I like about the articles that are there from the contributors is that we are not just explaining abstract concepts. I think there is an interconnection of systemic thinking with personal experience, which makes the content more personal, right? Because especially those of us that consume more academic content, normally it feels very abstract, very distant, very immaterial. So I think people can find more relatable content, even if some of the authors are academics themselves, but not only academics. So I think there is more plurality in the creators and in the format that we use.
Nairita, do you think we are approaching our goal of reaching out to the voices from the global south?
I think, like, the reason I joined the magazine as an editor is to sort of initiate that process in some way or the other. And, as long as we have that as a goal, as an outreach among the global south, but it's very hard to say that, the extent to which, we can be successful right now in terms of penetrating the popular masses. And that's again because of the complete lack of infrastructure. The fact that we are able to, like, have this meeting using technology itself is a privilege that so many communities in the global south they do not have. And electricity, access to electricity still remains a challenge there. There are a lot of things to learn in this process, but also I think what matters is the flexibility and the willingness for among us to be able to do that. If I were to be able to quickly comment on the magazine as well, I think coming from an ecosystem of academics, like where I was pursuing PhD for, I think, over 5 to 7 years, that included teaching as well. I think what interests me the most is the simplicity in the language we use and, the diversity in the topics. And like Alan pointed out, the theory doesn't seem so abstract. And one way that we allowed the authors to do that is by ensuring flexibility with the kind of format the visual formats. Like, if I'm reading an article, there are also pictures of the relevant topics in place and stuff like that, and videos included. And it seems very experimental and much more tangible for students and people who are estranged to this field of critical economics or like critical perspectives too.
Lily, how do you see sufficiency and well-being from California?
I mean, I think it's such a great experiment in kind of pro-social collaboration. And it's really refreshing, particularly in the United States right now, to have a kind of media that's frank and honest, and not overtly political. It is overtly political, but it's not politicized in the sense where it's like left or right or this candidate, that candidate. We're talking about issues and like issues that actually matter to daily life. So I've been having a really great time writing and reading for the magazine. Yeah, it's been great.
Well, we'll keep doing this. On this note, I'm thinking, I'm not sure why I feel like I'm acting like the MC of the meeting, but we'll rotate roles, but it's okay. So we had on the agenda brief introduction. So let's jump right into that. And I'm thinking of linking it to the understanding of degrowth. So let's go through that. Then we'll go in reverse order. Really feel free to jump in.
Okay. Well, I'm Lily. What do I say about myself? I'm originally from New York City, and my background is in environmental policy. So I've been passionate about climate change for my whole life, and entered the degrowth space from that sector, mostly from a frustration with the sustainability sector for not seeming to understand or get anywhere. Not understand the big picture, but also it didn't seem like sustainability advocates were making much progress. And I wanted to understand why, and that's kind of how I landed in degrowth. And I've really been enjoying myself so far, enough to contemplate a PhD. We don't know about that yet. Yeah, I've been having a great time. I live in California now, and I have 3 cats, and I love them very much. And yeah, that's me.
And what's your understanding of degrowth?
Oh, right. Yes, the topic. Kind of complicated, because I think what I like about our list is that it's so varied and so specific and yet kind of broad. But generally speaking, I think my understanding of degrowth is it's an effort to have individuals in the global north slow down a little bit and think about their lives, and their impact, and be more conscious in a way that's very tangible. I mean, I could give you like an academic definition of degrowth, but I think it's really about kind of seeing ourselves as part of a larger ecosystem of humans, of living things, leaning into reciprocity and gratitude rather than extraction.
Nairita, would you like to go next?
So hi, so I would pronounce my name as Nairita, and that's actually pretty recent. I don't want to go into that. It's more to do with my attachment to decoloniality in the way we pronounce our names, because so much of our pronunciation in India is colonized, because our minds are colonized. So my sort of revenge is an epistemic revenge to sort of reclaim my name and pronounce that as Nairita, which is very close to my mother tongue in Bengali. We have an O pronunciation to a lot of our names. But apart from that, so in terms of academic training, I have a background in law as well as development studies, and I did my like most critical scholars who studied within the left circles in India. I was interested in understanding how the climate crisis is affecting the farmers in rural India, especially because of the rise in crop failures and the rise in protests by the farmers' movements, and how that linked with the prolonged water scarcity, droughts. So I wanted to study that by using a socio-legal approach, because many of the farmers were conceptualizing law, which is completely alien to the mainstream academic understanding of law. At the same time, they were also opposing neoliberal capitalism, and which was nothing new, but the protest was just a rupture within the crisis that was already built into India's nation building process post formal decolonization in 1947. So anyway, that's the context, and I pursued a PhD in to understand how farmers are adapting to climate crisis. And after that, I mean, I'm here. I don't know. It's hard to define my identity based on discipline, because I'm an undisciplined, self-identified independent researcher. So what I understand by degrowth is actually comes back to my global south positionality. So I was introduced to degrowth when I was a master's student studying development studies through post-development literature. And much of the post-development literature offered critical perspectives to economic growth, but also other notions of well-being that were also decolonial. And degrowth was one aspect, one framework that sort of cropped up from there. And my understanding of degrowth back then was when the conversation was about planned economic downscaling while ensuring socio-ecological justice. To me, it was like that's how most rural communities are already living low impact lives. So rural communities in India do not need degrowth; they are living degrowth lives. So I wanted to come at the field from that angle, which I feel is missing in mainstream economic, mainstream degrowth literature. Yeah, that's my understanding of degrowth from the global south. Is like many communities, not the elite communities in the global south, of course, are already living degrowth lives.
That sounded way better than my answer. Can I redo it?
Yes, we have so many episodes coming up all the time. Alan, tell us.
Yeah, it's difficult to start also. So I will bring the level down over it, Lily. Yeah, I'm originally from Barcelona. I'm based in Germany due to work. Yeah, I consider myself working class because yeah, my parents have, especially my mom, have a very hard time to go by. So we face very close eviction and yeah, like health problems, mainly due to work and exploitation. So I see it coming, and yeah, I think that develops a sensibility. And when I study economics, after 4 years of neoliberal crap and algebra, it was very very easy after going to the private sector and start working to know that everything was bullshit. So you see, no, in big corporate how meritocracy is just a false mantra, and yeah, like how everything work, right? And you start asking questions, just being curious and from your origins and what you see, and you start questioning everything. Yeah, I also grow increasingly concerned about ecological questions because I see the degradation of the landscapes in my region very fast, like drought, heat, and so on. And I pursue a PhD in ecological economics. And my first paper was rejected because the conclusion was that growth, it's incompatible with sustainability and social justice. And basically they say that I should publish or work on the Kushner's curve, so which no one needs to know about, just trash it and go away from it. And then yeah, I pursue a master in degrowth, and that was very good because it articulates my experience, right? It articulates my experience of inequality, right? Because I know people having like people who were almost addicted to people having 3 houses, right? I know the whole class spectrum, and both were working as hard, right? And I see, the segregation and the difficulties on life, and degrowth put words and a diagnostic of the things that I see that doesn't work well, right? So very simple questions like why, since I was born, GDP per capita is 3 times bigger, but my grandparents can pay a house in 7 years and I will not make it in 60. Why is it that GDP has multiplied by 5, but we still have poverty despite China bringing most of the poverty reduction, right? So these kind of questions of why we are in economic crisis, why do we need to grow, why everyone needs to talk about economic growth. So degrowth is very helpful to answer these questions. But I don't think it's that helpful yet, telling how do we get out of the mess. So this is why, my thesis is about eco-socialism, and my main focus now is how do we go from A to B, right? So not just writing or talking about utopias, but really, okay, how do we end multi-billionaires? How do we bring democracy back? How do we fight settled colonialism, right? How do we bring justice in our systems? How do we bring agency into our political and in our society, right? So yeah, that's a little bit where I am now.
This is amazing because we'll have so many episodes to unpack all of that. There's so much packed into everything that you all said. Okay, I'll go next. Everyone, my name is Vlad. Full name, full disclosure, Raresh Vlad Bunea, or Bunea, pronounced in original Romanian. So I'm also taking ownership of my name. So I'm originally from a town called Cluj-Napoca in the heart of Transylvania. Some of our viewers might have heard about that. I moved to Canada in 2005 because I did not like the growthist, productivist, corruption culture in Romania. I did not feel myself at home. So here in Canada, I came with a neoliberal education. My undergrad was in economics. The standard, demand supply curves, all the crazy stuff that you learn in economy 101. And it took me a long time to discover ecological economics and the alternatives to the mainstream models. On the side, my passion is literature. I was writing novels and short stories and screenplays. I still do it. And now I'm at the point where I have discovered degrowth, and I think it's the solution to our predicament. I like it because I come from a scientific understanding of nature and um, human interactions. And when I found that there's a theory that blends economics and science, I thought, wow, this is the way to go. So I see degrowth mainly through this biophysical lens primarily. And then everything else comes after it. Very briefly, to me, degrowth means putting the economy on a diet and detox. That's why the D in front of growth means to me it's a detox that we need at this point to shrink and rescale the economy. And of course, it has all the implications that come with it, what it means for culture, for how we relate to provisioning our needs. Here's my economist brain kicking in. And how we see social justice and how we see the relations with the global south. So putting all in perspective, I think degrowth is a very helpful framework of thinking first. It requires an upgrade to our minds and brains to see how we build our lives, materially speaking, but also how we build the immaterial life on top of that. So going forward, sufficiency and well-being is a way of talking about degrowth from a different perspective, from a personal perspective, what it means for individuals, how to live their lives, but also from the perspective of the whole system, how it needs to be redesigned in such a way that we all achieve well-being on a finite planet within the fair consumption space, what is known in literature. These two words in my understanding, and that's why we use them at the magazine, we internalize the need for limits to see our lives within boundaries and material limits, and also limits imposed on our own imagination. Okay, so that's my short description of degrowth, and I love how we have the huge list, and it's a living list where we drop things and invite others to add their contributions. I was thinking of how to tease like a second half hour in which
Yeah.
we really speak our mind, because here I was a bit,
Uncensored.
yeah, a
Oh
bit
my God. Yeah,
uncensored.
I want to like uncensor myself already.
Yeah.
Yes, yes, yes. So, should we
Uh,
jump into it or?
yeah, why not? We might as well have everyone. So we do a paid version of the podcast. I'm talking out to the audience, in which we really speak our minds. Here we censored ourselves. So stay tuned for the next episode. Yes. And now it's where we cut and then we start a new recording.